can I clean your mansion for a plate of food? No answer came from the intercom she had just spoken into. Just the cold hum of silence and the rush of the storm. She looked up, eyes scanning the windows, hoping anyone, was listening. I can wash dishes, floors, toilets, anything, please. I haven't eaten since yesterday. Inside the gate, the estate's head of security watched from the dry overhang. A broad man with a tight jaw and zero patience for strays. You need to get off this property, he barked, stepping forward. Right now. Maya flinched, but didn't move. I said go, he yelled again, his boots splashing toward her. Just then, a black SUV pulled in through the side gate, its headlights cutting across the rain, lighting up the girl's small form huddled by the entrance. Wait, could this be the turning point she never saw coming? The vehicle slowed, then stopped. The door opened. From the passenger side stepped out a man in his mid-40s, tall, broad-shouldered, clean-cut with a 5 o'clock shadow, and tired blue eyes that had seen too much too soon. This was Damian Lucas Barrett, a 45-year-old tech magnate whose face rarely appeared in public anymore. Since the death of his wife 6 years ago, he had avoided almost everything outside his business empire except his memories. He stepped into the rain, waving away the umbrella offered by his driver. What's going on? He asked sharply, glancing at the girl and then at the guard. Sir, I was handling it. She's trespassing, said she wanted to clean for food. Damian's eyes dropped to the girl. Maya looked up, blinking away rain. Her face was pale, lips tinged purple. Yet, she remained on her knees, hands still clutched. Please, sir, she whispered. I don't want to steal. I just want to eat. I'll work for it, anything you need. The guard stepped forward again, but Damian raised a hand. Don't touch her. Sir, we don't know who she is, the guard began. I said, don't touch her, Damian repeated, voice steely. He moved closer, rain soaking into his tailored coat. Maya looked even smaller up close. Then she bowed deeply, pressing her forehead to the pavement. Thank you, sir. Thank you. As she bent forward, the neck of her sweater slipped, revealing a silver pendant on a delicate chain. Damian froze. The rain seemed to fall quieter. He crouched down slowly, his eyes fixed on the pendant. It was oval-shaped, worn by time, but still recognizable. On its surface were small engraved letters, D+E. His breath caught. He knew that pendant. He had given it to Elise, his college love, on their first anniversary. Elise, who vanished from his life 20 years ago. Elise, who never told him she had a daughter. His heart slammed against his chest. And just like that, a forgotten pendant opened a door to the past. A past filled with love, loss, and a truth that refused to stay buried. What if this stranger at his gate was family? Will this change everything? What would you do if a stranger at your gate turned out to be family? If this moment touched you, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Tap like if your heart skipped a beat and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of connection even in the rain, brought to you by BUP Stories. Where did you get that? He asked softer now, almost afraid of the answer. Maya looked up, alarmed. Her hand shot to the pendant, fingers closing protectively around it. It was my mom's, she said. She said it belonged to someone she once loved. She never told me his name. Damian's jaw tightened. Rain traced the edge of his face unnoticed. What was your mom's name? He asked. Elise, Maya whispered. L. Morgan. The name hit him like thunder. He stood upright, chest rising and falling. Then turning to the guard, he said, bring her inside now. The man hesitated. Sir, she's freezing. She hasn't eaten. You treat her like a guest. Maya clutched her bag and rose shakily to her feet. I can still clean, she offered weakly. I won't take anything. You're not cleaning, Damian said gently. You're coming in to get warm and to eat. She blinked as if unsure she'd heard correctly. Then she broke down, not loudly, but in a quiet stream of tears that mixed with the rain on her cheeks. As Damian turned to lead her inside, he didn't look back at the stunned security guard. All he could see was the girl with Elise's necklace, the girl who might just be his daughter. The warmth hit her like a wave. Maya stepped into the mansion's foyer with hesitant feet, the polished marble cold but dry under her soaked shoes. A fireplace crackled softly in the far room, its golden light dancing across the walls. She shivered uncontrollably, though not just from the rain. Her eyes darted to every corner of the grand space, so clean, so quiet, so impossibly far from the streets she'd slept on last night. A woman approached. She looked about 60, tall and composed, wearing a navy cardigan and white apron embroidered with the name Gloria. Her expression was stern but not unkind. "Come with me," Gloria said. "Let's get you out of those clothes." Maya looked to Damian, who had followed closely behind. He gave a small nod, then spoke to Gloria without taking his eyes off the girl. "Find something warm, maybe from Elise's old closet." Gloria blinked. "Sir, that closet hasn't been touched in years." "I know," he said quietly. "But she's already touched something I haven't in a long time." With a slight pause, Gloria nodded and led Maya down a hallway that smelled of lemon polish and lavender. As they passed the ornate staircase and the arched windows, Maya couldn't help but glance around. Paintings of people she didn't know hung on the walls. Men in suits, women in pearls. None looked like her. In the guest bathroom, Gloria handed her a fresh towel, a simple gray sweater, and cotton leggings. "Strip down. Leave the wet things in the basket," Gloria instructed. "I'll bring you soup." Maya nodded. "Thank you, ma'am." Gloria raised a brow. "No need for ma'am here, but thank you for the manners." Alone in the bathroom, Maya peeled off her soaked clothes with effort. Her fingers were stiff, purple at the tips. As she unwrapped her damp sweater, something small slipped from the front pocket and landed on the tile with a soft thud. It was her handkerchief, the white one with red thread. She stared at it for a long moment, as if it no longer belonged to her. Then she picked it up and placed it gently on the sink, pressing it flat with care. In the living room, Damian Barrett stood by the fire, one hand cradling a mug of tea he hadn't touched. His thoughts were tangled with memory and regret. Elise. Maya. That pendant, that name. How could Elise have kept this from him? It had been 6 years. Just 6, not decades. 6 years since that night in the apartment. The shouting, the tears. He had accused her of betraying his trust over something small, stupid, really. He'd been under pressure, the company struggling, the investors watching every move. Elise had wanted him to come to a family funeral out of state. He had refused. She called him cold. He called her selfish, and then she left. She had taken nothing, not even her clothes, just vanished. He thought she was punishing him. She never returned his calls. He assumed she moved on. And he let pride hold the door shut. Now here was Maya wearing Elise's necklace. Elise's eyes, Elise's strength. Gloria returned, drying her hands on her apron. "She's warming up. Quiet kid, polite." She said her mother's name was Elise Morgan. Damian said. Gloria's hand paused mid-motion. "Sir, are you sure?" She had the locket I gave Elise. The one with our initials. "I haven't seen it since." He trailed off. Gloria stepped closer. "You think Elise had this child after she left you?" He nodded slowly. "She never told me, never called." 6 years, Gloria murmured. 6 years, Damian echoed. Maya re-entered the room slowly, wrapped in the gray sweater, hair damp but combed back. The leggings fit loosely and her feet were bare. She held the handkerchief in one hand as if afraid to lose it again. "Thank you for the clothes," she said softly, standing near the doorway. "Come sit," Damian gestured to the couch near the fire. "You'll catch pneumonia standing there." She obeyed, knees drawn together, hands in her lap. "I had soup brought," he added. "Chicken and rice. You can eat first, then we talk." The tray was set beside her on a low table. Maya looked at it like it might vanish. She picked up the spoon, paused, and said, "Is it really okay?" Damian nodded. "Eat, Maya." She ate slowly at first, then faster, like someone who knew what it was like to be watched and judged while eating. "I'm Damian," he said after a while. "You already know that, I guess." She nodded. "You live around here?" Maya swallowed, then hesitated. "Not really. We move around. Sometimes an old truck near the overpass. Sometimes a shelter. My brother Caleb, he's 6. He's back there now." I told him I'd try to find food. Damian's jaw clenched. "Does he know where you went?" She shook her head. "Didn't want him to worry. He gets scared when I leave." Damian stood and turned toward the front door. "Then we'll get him." Maya looked up, alarmed. "You don't have to." "I mean, you've already," I said. "We'll get him," Damian repeated, pulling on his coat. Gloria, overhearing from the hall, interjected. "Sir, perhaps wait till the rain lets up." "Not another hour," he replied. "Not if a child's out there alone." To Maya, he added, "You'll show me where." She stood, clutching the handkerchief. "Yes, sir." As they stepped into the cold again, the rain had softened to a drizzle. The SUV waited at the curb. Damian opened the door himself and helped Maya in. She sank into the leather seat, hands in her lap. He didn't say much as they drove, but he kept glancing at her, studying her profile. Her eyes, the curve of her brow. A stranger's face, yet somehow familiar. 15 minutes later, they pulled up beside an abandoned truck parked behind a hardware store. Maya hopped out, running to the back and knocking twice on the side. "Caleb, it's me." "It's okay." A small face peeked out from the shadowed interior. He was thin, wrapped in a threadbare blanket. When he saw Maya, his eyes lit up. She scooped him into her arms. Damian stood by, silent. When Caleb noticed him, he stiffened. "It's okay," Maya whispered. "This is Mr. Barrett. He helped me." Damian crouched. "Hi, Caleb. Want to come somewhere warm with your sister?" The boy looked to Maya. She nodded. And with that, he extended a small hand. Damian took it. And somewhere, deep in the ache of lost years, a thread of healing quietly began. The drive back to the Barrett estate was silent, save for the occasional rumble of thunder and the soft hum of the engine. Maya sat in the back seat beside Caleb, her arm wrapped tightly around his shoulders, his head rested against her, eyelids fluttering from exhaustion. But he stayed awake, alert, unsure if this was all a dream. Damian sat up front, eyes fixed on the road. But every now and then, he glanced in the mirror, studying the two children huddled together. There was something heartbreakingly familiar about it, something that gnawed him quietly but deeply. When they arrived, Gloria was already waiting at the front door, holding 2 large towels and a skeptical look. Her instincts were quick, and her heart, though guarded, had softened just a touch since seeing Maya earlier, but now 2 children. This would be a storm of its own kind. As they stepped inside, Caleb clung to Maya's hand, unsure whether to marvel or run. The warm light, the smell of clean linen and baked bread, the softness of the carpet under his wet socks, it was all too much. "You must be Caleb," Gloria said gently, kneeling down and wrapping him in a towel. "Let's get you warm before your teeth start rattling." Caleb gave her a weary nod, then leaned into Maya again. "He hasn't had anything real to eat since yesterday," Maya said. "Some crackers from the shelter. That's all." Gloria straightened and looked at Damian. "I'll warm up more soup." "Thank you," he replied. Maya helped Caleb onto the couch by the fireplace where the flames still flickered in their quiet rhythm. Damian removed his coat and hung it carefully by the door, noting for the first time how strange it looked to have 2 sets of tiny shoes. Truncated for brevity, continue with original text as needed. Last week. He's following the fallout from your revelations. Maya closed her eyes. The wind outside rattled the window. He wasn't expecting me. That makes you safer, Morales said. He didn't anticipate the truth being shared publicly and with allies. We have an open warrant. If he tries to enter public spaces or make moves, we'll know. Damian took a steady breath. Thank you. Morales left them with more than reassurance. He brought files, photos of Edward retaken in grainy glimpses, a dark coat, a fedora, a silhouette outside the conference center the previous evening. Maya studied the images with Damian. Her heart didn't beat fast, it beat steady. She recognized the weight of responsibility. Truth felt heavy, and threats only sharpened it. The next morning, they flew back to Connecticut. Caleb slept curled around Maya's elbow. Damian held her hand. The estate looked small from the air, but felt large with intent when they returned. Gloria greeted them with fresh flowers from the garden. Caleb asked if Chicago was magical. Maya promised him it was full of cities built on courage. That evening, they gathered in the library. Damian closed the doors, turned down the lamps, and offered Maya a journal and pen. Write the next step, he said. For Elise, for you, for every child who still sleeps cold. Maya opened the leather-bound book. She paused, pen hovering. The clock ticked. Outside, shadows gathered in the corners, not of menace, but of possibility. She wrote, I remember seeing the skyline of Chicago light up like hope. And realizing that justice isn't a place you arrive at. It's a light you carry forward. From my mother's first protest through her hidden scars to my first steps in a mansion's foyer. The world may tremble at my story. Night may whisper fear, but I will walk forward because truth is not silent. It is the echo that carries through generations. She set the pen down. Damian read it and placed a firm hand on her shoulder. The foundation has a center now, he said softly. The Barrett Justice Center for Legal Aid, for children in your name. Her eyes glowed. For Elise, and for every story waiting to be seen, he added. That night, Maya slipped into the garden under stars burning like embers. She knelt by the forget-me-nots, touched the petals, and whispered once more, we are still here. And in the quiet of memory and hope, she felt the unseen thread stronger than fear guiding her home into purpose. The first frost of autumn painted the Barrett estate in fragile glitter, and under that hush, life had woven itself into patterns thriving beneath the surface. Inside the garden, dahlias braced for the chill, and forget-me-nots curled into their beds like lullabies. For Maya, the estate no longer felt like borrowed space. It pulsed with family, purpose, sanctuary. Caleb had started school with a steady rhythm. Mornings with bus picks, homework under lamplight, weekend adventures at the local science museum. Gloria baked apple pies after school drop-offs. Damian had launched the Barrett Justice Center, its windows glowing with promise late into the evening as volunteers filed in to offer legal aid to families who, like his and Maya's, had been invisible for too long. That morning, Maya sat at her mother's garden bench, bundled in a scarf, sipping tea. Her breath swirled into the air, smoking soft. From the edge of the lawn, Damian approached. He carried a folder thick with pages, grant proposals, architectural drawings for a children's literacy mobile unit, a blueprint for the center's expansion. She glanced up. He sat beside her, setting the folder between them. Morning, he said, voice low and steady. Morning. This arrived, he said. From Dr. Hannah Price. You remember the founder of the Chicago Civil Rights Conference. She's offering a collaboration, traveling clinics, legal workshops, story-sharing events nationwide. Maya exhaled slowly. That's massive in a good way, Damian said. It's your story having impact, but it also brings attention. She stared at the folder. I want it. He reached for her hand. Then let's build it. They spent the afternoon planning under brambles of sunlight that filtered through oak leaves. By evening, Marcus Thompson had arrived carrying a box of more of Elise's things. Framed calligraphy of names, handwritten poems, personal notes to friends and clients at the clinic, inked in beautiful loops and arcs. He lingered on the bench with Maya, telling stories she'd never heard. How Elise shockingly told him she wrote like, I will always carry truth on paper, and how one morning she woke him with a laugh. You'll remember me by how I fixed the broken. Caleb bounded into the garden, calling for them to come inside. But Marcus stayed a beat longer, looking at the children's plot of soil and seeds they'd planted in Elise's memory. Maya touched his shoulder. He nodded, wordless, and together they stepped inside. At dinner, they gathered in the restored dining room. Golden light from a chandelier overhead. Maya spoke quietly about Chicago, about the letters she'd read, about the people who'd written in response to her words. Marcus smiled proudly. Damian's eyes moist. Then Caleb looked at Maya. Mama said you would do good things, he said softly at the table. And you are. For a moment, time split softly between past and present. The girl who once begged under iron gates had become a voice. Her brother, her miracle, spoke into his plate with quiet wonder. Behind them, the bench in the garden stood like a promise whispered onto stone. After dinner, Maya returned to the pantry and found a letter tucked between jars of preserves. It was in Elise's handwriting, sealed with a small pressed flower. The note read simply, "I believed in you before you believed in yourself. Keep going, beautiful soul." Under it were 3 words. I love you. Maya folded it gently, pressing it to her heart. Down the hallway, she found Damian staring at the backs of photos in the hall. One of Elise smiling at graduation. One of Maya in that first heavy coat she wore to clean the house. One of Caleb asleep in the hospital after his illness. 3 souls tangled in memory and becoming something fierce. She slipped her hand into Damian's. We have roots now, she whispered. He nodded. And branches. In the garden the next morning, frost lingered at the edges of petals, but under the bench, bloom roots trembled with life. A new dawn was forming, and as the backyard sun rose gentle, Maya stood tall at the head of that garden, her story grounded in grief. Yes, but now nourished, rooted, and reaching for tomorrow. Winter arrived with hush and sparkle. A soft blanket of snow lay on the dahlias and peonies, tender white across their colors. The forget-me-not slept underground, dreaming of spring. Inside the Barrett estate, warmth pulsed in laughter, soft guitar strums during quiet nights, the glow of lamps on dusty bookshelves. It no longer felt like an inherited home. It was home. Maya woke early that morning. The sunlight through frost-patterned windows casting soft halos around her. She carried a journal down to the study where Damian was already seated, reading through proposals for a national traveling clinic line. The Barrett Justice Center had grown fast. From Yale towns to inner-city neighborhoods, word of their work spread. Families came seeking help with housing, immigration, juvenile cases. The voice she once thought too small now echoed in waiting rooms, courtrooms, classrooms. She knelt beside him and touched the corner of the current draft. Ready? He asked. She ran her thumb along a clean margin. Let's do it. That afternoon, their home became a gathering place. Volunteers from the Barrett Center, allies from the Chicago Conference, even Marcus lately now a steady presence. Tables were set in the great hall, trays of cider and shortbread, mugs steaming. In the corner, a photo album lay open, snapshots of 2 soft smokes of memory and future. One of Elise and Maya, one of Guillermo from the Chicago Center, one of volunteers kneeling with children, and in the center, the symbol of this legacy, 2 small hands pressed into freshly planted soil. Maya stepped to the podium they had set up for the guest roundtable. Beside her, Damian quietly adjusted the microphone stand. She spoke low and sure. Today, we gather across generations. We gather for lost voices, for scaffolding built on truth, not pity. My mother Elise taught me that we give people not charity but justice. We give them a place to stand. She paused and looked across the room at each listener. I spoke into cameras and talked about hope. But real change, real justice is when we build systems that bend toward dignity. That's why the Barrett Justice Center is going national. When the applause came, it was full and warm, erupting into handshakes and hugs. Gloria stood proud by the cupcakes she'd baked, watching the joy orbit the room. Caleb sat absorbed as the other children helped Kevin, a Barrett Center tutor, distribute coloring books with embossed banners. Every child deserves to be seen. That evening, after the guests had gone, Maya went into the garden. Frost glimmered like silver dust on the bench. Stars trembled low in the sky. She wrapped her arms around her brother and whispered, "We did it, Caleb." He looked up at her, sleepy but certain. "We did it." Damian joined them under the memories of Elise's garden. She would have been proud. Maya touched the snow-rested flowers. "I know she is." They stood together until the lights inside glowed warm. When they returned to the fireplace, Maya found the final letter Elise had ever written, sealed in a pale blue envelope pressed beneath old programs from Maya's reading at the library gala. Opening it, she read, "To my brave child. If this is in your hands, you have grown stronger than I could have ever hoped. You've built what I tried to begin. You carry light where darkness once stood. Know that wherever I rest, I see you, and I love you across all this life and the next." Maya pressed the letter to her chest, tears slipping for the woman who had carried her across fear and memory. Damian's arm wrapped around her, grounding. Caleb, asleep on the rug, murmured something about Mama Dog in the new story he'd drawn earlier. Something fierce and kind. Later, Maya placed that final letter beneath the forget-me-not bush alongside the block of stone they'd set for Elise in her memory. She pressed the soil gently over it, tracing the initial patterns of her mother's handwriting on frost-tipped ground. Inside, they blessed the hearth with cider and books and quiet conversation winding late. The estate felt alive with stories of survival, courage, roots growing through steel, healing over years, of two children who once begged at gates, and now built gates of their own to open. That night, Maya stood at the porch in stillness. The sky was clear. Every star looked like a promise. She breathed it all in. You are still here. That wasn't just her story. It was her gift to every generation she would reach. To every child who still wondered what it meant to belong. To every mother whose love burned even when the world could not see the flame. And as the snow hushed the ground and the garden rested in memory, Maya Barrett finally knew this. She was home. Not because the mansion had walls or gates, but because she carried within her the unbreakable roots of love, truth, and justice. And those roots would grow for now forever into forests of hope across America. The story of Maya Barrett teaches us that justice often begins in silence, in the quiet strength of those who refuse to be broken by hardship. It reminds us that true courage is not just in surviving adversity, but in turning pain into purpose. Through Maya's journey from a rain-soaked plea at a mansion gate to becoming a national voice for justice, we learn that roots grounded in love, truth, and resilience can grow into legacies that uplift generations. This is a story about finding home not in walls but in action, and about how the smallest voices, when honored, can echo with the power to heal a nation. Brought to you by BUP Stories.